Africa's water crisis has been a struggle, pain, and suffering that has been going on for decades for many Africans to deal with every day. It is truly a sad situation that no action is being taken to solve the water crisis that is killing tens of thousands of people each day.
In 2018, it's Cape Town, South Africa in the news. Now, in its third year of drought, Cape Town is preparing for the day when it just might have no water at all.
Meanwhile, Zimbabwe is facing a severe water shortage along with other countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Data from a charity called The Last Well shows that nearly 40% of the 783 million people living in the region are without access to safe drinking water. The situation is improving at a very slow pace.
Zimbabwe is experiencing an acute water shortage in the country's second city, Bulawayo. Authorities say they had to shut down water supplies for 96
The water crisis in Africa has caused chaos in Cape Town, South Africa, as well as in the sub-Saharan region. Many Africans are dying as a result due to water-related diseases and contamination. People have to walk for miles to get drinkable water. According to thelastwell.org, 40% of sub-Saharan Africa does not have access to clean drinking water, and 2/3 of sub-Saharan Africa rely on surface water, and over 320 million people lack access to safe drinking water. Weak governments, corruption, mismanagement of resources, and the lack of environmental research are all the major reasons for the cause of water scarcity and contamination. So by looking at this map, we can see that there is adequate water supply in the southern and central regions of Africa. Although this is good for many people, there is still water scarcity and water stress in many African countries throughout the map, and this situation is worsening each day. In 1997, about half of Africa's population suffered from at least one major water-related illness, and many people in the region continue to suffer the effects of unclean water. In 1994, a bulk carrier sank in Cape Town, spilling 2,400 tons of oil from the vessel, which contaminated many water resources, causing a lot of illnesses and numerous deaths. According to Jim Schaefer, who works for the NPQ Water Crisis Group in Cape Town, the volume of water stored has decreased throughout the years in Cape Town. In 2013, there were over 1,000 volumes of water stored, but that number has dropped to just 250 in 2018, and it's predicted to go even below that in the near future. So with these statistics, there's no way that Africa will meet the necessary water requirements for their needs. And nearly half of Africa's population suffered from a water-related disease back in 1997. This crisis is very important, especially for girls and children, because it affects every minute of their lives. And without clean water, there will be an increase in poverty and malnutrition and a decrease in school attendance. And the lack of clean water is an obstacle that they have to face each day. And there are also many reasons that result in the growth of the water crisis, and one of them is climate change, which has affected water supplies within the region, and more rivers and water systems dried out, causing even bigger problems for Africans. Another problem of water scarcity is droughts and flooding, which are the most dangerous water-related disasters that occur in sub-Saharan Africa. According to one report, 35% of cities' water is stolen through illegal connections, and preventative measures that were once put in place, such as dams, haven't even started at all, and those structures are now collapsing due to the lack of maintenance. Another problem is the lack of sanitation and hygiene in the country's rural communities. There is an increase in waterborne diseases that is steadily increasing, such as cholera, malaria, and typhoid, that is slowly contaminating the water supply. There is also a lack of infrastructure to provide safe and clean drinkable water. Improvements in access to clean water and sewage infrastructure have been made, but a large number of Africans live without these necessities. In countries such as the sub-Saharan, 1 in 4 people still lack adequate sanitation. The African government has spent over $70 million to combat this issue, but that money has gone to a waste because most of that money from the government was taken away by corrupted politicians. Africa's population is rising a lot and there is a driving demand for water, but there's a decrease in the availability of these water resources. If governments don't take immediate action, the urban slum population in the sub-Saharan region of Africa is expected to reach 400 million by 2020. To further understand the extent to which Africa has been affected by the water crisis, I decided to interview my friend Rowan to get a student's perspective of my topic. I also spoke with Brianna Jackson, who is a resident living in Cape Town, South Africa. I then interviewed Tondo, who is a member of the Ministry of Agriculture in South Africa.
I think the water crisis is a very big deal. As Americans, I think most of us take water for granted and don't see how things are throughout the world. I also believe that this is an even bigger problem, as we don't see how big of a problem it is until it reaches things like the news or until something big happens. Like, for example, as we see with COVID-19, it's a global pandemic, and now people are realizing how bad it is, whereas in the beginning, people didn't realize the severity of the issue. A great way of spreading awareness is through the news. If health officials notify the public about the potential dangers of this crisis, I believe that this will help the public and help them get the support they need.
Okay.
I think now that as a species, we have seen an horrible outcome with low sanitations, and we are now more aware of how to prevent the pandemic or any diseases from spreading throughout the world, and this is more of a reason to help prevent it.
The biggest issue that's happening in South Africa is the fact that we're actually going through a dry spell in terms of the water, and we are the 30th driest nation in the whole world. And I think from a consumer perspective and just generally, people need to be aware of the fact that this is everyone's problem. So water conservation is really everyone's problem. It's not only about the government. So it's important for us to understand what the implications are if we don't have this economic driver, which is water. The issue that's happening now is that pollution is actually going into waterways. So in terms of infrastructure in South Africa, that needs to be improved at the same time. In the President's newsletter in December, he mentioned that actually water conservation is actually all of our problems. But regardless of that, the nation is doing something about it. For example, in Cape Town, they've actually launched the Anti-Plastic Pact, which also will help in a later on stage to actually eliminate pollution that is going into our water and therefore making water more unusable. So I think those are the steps that people are taking, for example, in Cape Town with the pact, but also, as the President said, I think it's everyone's problem.
Water crisis in Africa is mainly due to the scarcity of the water sources, and also the rising population in Africa has also led to the demand on the available free water sources. But the most serious point here is the unavailability of good water sources which can produce fresh water to serve the communities. The pollution, there's a lot of pollution which is affecting the fresh or the good water sources. There are a number of industries which are being set up in Africa. These industries normally they have water treatments and maybe pollution, which end up going into the few good water sources, causing a crisis to an extent that most of our lakes are polluted, most of our rivers are polluted, which causes a danger.
So through my interviews, I was able to get a better insight about how public awareness of the water crisis can be achieved. The people that I spoke with talked about how public awareness can be addressed and what steps should be taken to reduce this crisis and what people should know about or be cautious about when using large amounts of water for their needs. When I spoke to Tondo, he gave me excellent thoughts and ideas for public awareness. So I learned that public awareness can be achieved by empowering communities. This can be done when UNICEF promotes community-based hand washing through various media and through campaigns like Global Hand Washing Day, which reaches hundreds of millions of people each year in 100 different countries and promotes basic hygiene practices in rural and urban areas. This is also a great way to spread awareness to people throughout the world and a great way to advertise for the people who don't know about the water crisis. Other awareness solutions that he mentioned are supporting schools and aid humanitarian action. So when I spoke with Brianna, she gave me insight about the lack of water infrastructures throughout Cape Town. She also gave information on the big issues that are happening right now in South Africa. She specifically mentions that people are going through a dry spout in terms of the water supply. She talks about her own perspective and about how important water conservation is and how people need to be aware that this is their problem. Furthermore, she mentioned that one of the biggest issues is pollution that is going into waterways. Fortunately, the Anti-Plastic Pact in Cape Town was established to eliminate this pollution. So now the question is, what are the best solutions towards ending the water crisis in Africa? Moreover, how can we put an end to it so that future generations don't struggle with water scarcity and contaminated water?
I think we need to find a way of creating something that's small and effective, like an inexpensive filter which can help get people the clean water they need. So like for the filter, it would just like clean their water to stop any diseases from them consuming it, and would really help decrease the amount of disease and help them stay healthy and lower the chance of disease to spread.
On a practical way that I can suggest is it's as easy as really decreasing the amount of pollution around your area. If you see a plastic bottle, either recycle it or find a way to actually make sure that it doesn't go to our waterways, because that actually makes the job harder for the government to actually make sure that the water gets to us eventually. So I think that's a very important pact, but we also believe at SodaStream that reduction is the best way. Our water is one of the best in the world, so it's really understanding of how to get the water that we have, that with the rainfall, I'm sure everyone right now knows that it's been raining all over the country, but it's also making sure that we get that water, we keep it, and we actually use it very well.
Overall, I think that the water crisis in Africa has had a detrimental effect for many people and has been a struggle for many people for a very long time. However, I learned that there are many viable solutions for solving the water crisis, as well as raising public awareness that is being done in many countries in Africa as we speak. Global Citizen tells us that Global Goal 4 aims to ensure water availability and sanitation for all in 2030, along with many other charity organizations. People aren't mostly concerned about the lack of water, but instead they are concerned about the lack of public awareness. TheLastWell.org shows how public awareness could be achieved through social media. Ghana, Cape Town, and Nigeria have all followed these set of protocols of awareness. That being said, public awareness should continue in the future as well, because it is a vital part of how Africans live their daily lives.